Today's show is called Journey with Kathryn Grandfield. Hi Kathryn, how are you?
Fine, Lillian. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm glad you finally got here. Long trip?
Long enough.
It took you how many days?
3 days.
Well, that's not bad. 3 days from?
Central Missouri to here.
To here,
in Olympia.
Yeah. Well, you have agreed to share with us some of your highlights or your lessons on your journey. Or I don't know where you want to start, so you could probably maybe you could tell us your expectations. Okay, we're ready for the story.
Well, the story actually goes back several years. I sort of had to go on the road, and I worked in a couple of different places. And 2.5 years ago, I had moved to Arkansas. And my reason for working in different places was because I was out of money. So I needed to find things to do to earn money. And that's where the journey took me. So the journey actually began about 4 years ago. The last 2.5 years I spent in Arkansas. And I wanted to leave very badly. But I couldn't figure out exactly how I was going to get out of there. And it seemed that money was the issue. And at the same time I'm struggling with money, the economy was starting to go downhill. And other people were talking about money. And it was nice for a while to feel like I was one of many people who were having a difficult time. But that doesn't stop the personal aspect of finding yourself without funds to do the things that you feel like you need to do and that you really want to do. That part of the journey took me to a place where I realized I had to work to do the things that I needed to do to get away from there. And so that's where the journey actually began. And it came to fruition this summer when I realized that I would be able to leave. And I was going to move to Washington. And then a series of events had to take place. And I needed to dispose of things I had had in a storage unit for some time. I wanted to see some friends that I might not see for a long time before I left. And there were some things I wanted to get done for my children, who were grown children, but some things I wanted to do for them. So that's why I stopped in West Plains, Missouri for about a week and a half. And then I stopped for a couple of days in Sedalia. And then I went on the road. And the journey part of the traveling from Missouri to Washington was that it was a cause for reflection on many things. And it was a desire to get closer to understanding myself and understanding how life worked a little better. I'd like to think that I learned some things, but I'm not sure I can explain them just now. There were some really interesting experiences in just watching people and the interaction between people along the way. But I spent 3 days by myself, sitting in my automobile, driving and thinking. And that was the biggest part of my journey. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing that I learned was that I regained faith in myself, that I could take care of myself, that I could get myself moved physically and probably mentally and perhaps spiritually from a place where I had gotten stuck for a while.
I'm going to go somewhere here for a minute. You was very tired when you came, but you, the champ, it was Friday night and the friends were in town to play in the band. So even though you was really tired, you agreed to go out with me.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember the young girl with the walker that was there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
We kind of dissected that a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in her journey. Do you remember how we did that?
Is it okay to back up and kind of tell
You
a
can
little
back,
bit
yeah,
about this?
just back up.
There was
please.
a young girl, a young woman, who looked to be in maybe her early 20s, who was in a walker. And she struggled to get out to the dance floor. And her arm was in a partial cast. And she obviously was having great difficulty moving one of her legs. And her dance partner was an older man. And later, you found out that the older man was her father.
Was her father, yeah, and I talked to her mother, and the young lady had a head injury. I mean, you could really see where her skull had, from beginning to end had split. And I was thinking how determined that person was to do things regardless what the obstacles were.
I was touched by two parts of that, of watching them dance. One was her determination to continue to try dancing and to enjoy it while she was doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that she was attempting it to try to see if she could do it. She was participating in the dancing of all the people that were on the dance floor. The other part of it that so touched me was the obvious love from this older man as he was watching her and enjoying watching her enjoy herself. And when I found out, when you told me that this was her...
Yeah, that this was her father?
Yes. When you told me, it was obvious to me that he really loved his daughter and was very proud of her and was kind of having a special moment as a parent in being her dance partner while she struggled, because she was struggling in the dance. She couldn't move freely. She could only move maybe one arm or slowly move the other leg a little bit, but that he was really enjoying the experience and that he loved her very much.
It's really fortunate that she had him, because some of us struggle, metaphorically speaking. We in that walker with a broken arm and we can't get nowhere, and sometimes we don't have that loving
That's right.
parent per se, to say, let's go do anyway, and that's where we are sometimes, huh?
Right.
Yeah. You know, the amazing thing is when we get ready for a trip or journey, we take out a map and we look at it, and it blows the interstates and the rest of the roads, and everything looks so easy on a map here. And it might give you a little brown, it might give you a little green even. Then what happens, it looks so easy and we think it's a piece of cake. Well, between the distances and the things we encounter in between, it's not really on a map, and that's where the human experience come in. Sure, there the sun rises, and also the beautiful sunsets we encounter. And then before we know it, we realize that when we're kind of out there, especially by ourselves, that it is a time for reflection. No, and I guarantee you a picture like this will stick in your mind from now on. Just like the girl that we met at the club, she had her road map.
Yeah. And her roadmap probably included things like finishing college and getting the ideal job and maybe marrying her boyfriend or finding the ideal boyfriend. and the rest of her life, if she played by what we think are the rules and followed the map, that she would get to the place of happiness out here that waits for us. And sometimes we do follow those road maps. We think that there are certain things we need to do that will make our lives the ideal that we all want our life to be. But something happens along the way. The economy goes sour, or we suffer a financial reversal, or we become ill with a serious illness. In the case of this girl, she had a terrible, unfortunate accident, and it changed her life, probably in some ways forever.
Yeah, she really had a bad head injury. Started on her forehead and went all the way to the other side. Yeah.
But she still danced.
She did.
She scooted. She couldn't lift her walker. She scooted her walker, and her father walked behind her, and she got out in the middle of the dance floor. She wasn't a wallflower over at the edge.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the middle of the dance floor with her father, doing the very best she could to do something that she enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And he enjoyed watching her and participating with her. And you talked to the mother, right?
I talked to her and the mother. Mm-hmm.
And the mother was happy to be there and see both of them doing
Both of them
this.
happy. Speaking of scooter, I got my Cadillac of a walker that everybody's familiar with. And if I can do it one way, I'll scoot it. So how did you scoot it, Kathryn?
On this last part of the journey,
Wherever you want to come in.
sometimes I didn't scoot well
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. When I went to Arkansas, I worked as a farm laborer. In my early 40s, I had gone back to school and got my master's degree so that I could get better paying jobs. And that took some mental rearrangement on my part, and how to feel good about myself even though I was doing farm labor work with farm animals. Later on, I scooted better. On this last part of the journey, that was the traveling across the country, there was a day when I realized that I was not just scooting, I was able to pick up my walker.
You picked it up.
I picked it up and took it. And that was in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
There were two. I have a 12-year-old truck that I was unsure about making the trip. And I feared more than anything the large climbs
Mm-hmm.
of the mountains coming west. And in Wyoming, there was a place where no one had met, and I talked to a number of people who had made, I think about 5 people, who had made this trip across Nebraska and Wyoming and Idaho and so forth. No one had mentioned that just before I got to Laramie, Wyoming, there would be 2 large climbs and rapid descents right together. Boom, boom. And all of a sudden I'm climbing and I'm wondering what's going on. And it's the kind of climb that my, all the vehicles, all the 4-wheel cars and trucks, not the big ones, were only going 35 or 40 miles an hour up these mountains. And then the descent was immediate. You just, boom, you're
Mm-hmm.
down. And then when I got to the bottom of the first one, I thought, boy, that's really cool. I'm glad that's over with. And I wonder why no one mentioned this to me, because everyone had mentioned all the passes, all the big mountains, and immediately I started up again, and it was like, oh my God, no, here we go again. And it was. And it was another 35-mile-an-hour climb. And all the cars are groaning. And then when we get to the top, it's another immediate descent where you just try not to burn your brakes up going down. And the trucks, the big trucks, semis, are all having a difficult time both going up and coming down. And when I got to the bottom of that last descent, I felt I did that. No one told me about it. I wasn't prepared for it. I hadn't anticipated it. I didn't have a chance to worry about it. I just drove it. And in a way, I put that on my map, if that makes sense. It wasn't listed as any big thing, but it was there.
Yeah. See, I come to this sometimes, and I know that if I go the same route twice, I know what's ahead.
Exactly.
And sometimes that makes it worse than if you're oblivion to how many times you have to go up and down, you know. And then you worry about it like 2 days before.
There was another place where I picked up the walker. That was even better. And there was a pass that you had talked to me about, Pendleton. You had talked to me about Pendleton Pass.
Yeah, I'm terrified of Pendleton Pass.
Yes, I know you are. And so therefore I began being terrified of Pendleton Pass. And I spent a day and a half worrying about Pendleton Pass. And I couldn't decide whether I was going to go ahead and go over this pass at night because I really wanted to drive as much as I could that night so that I could get here early on Friday. And I decided that I would stay at a Motel 8. I had stayed at a Motel 6 2 nights in a row. This time I was going to try a Motel 8. And as I'm coming into whatever the town is just before the pass begins,
The Grand.
I see a sign, and a big lighted sign that says Motel 8. And somehow in my head I got that scramble. I was thinking, well, I'm looking for a Motel 6. And I went on past it. I didn't know that that was the last motel in La Grande.
Can't turn around. Yeah.
No place to turn around. I'm climbing Pendleton Pass. And I realized this when the car starts to groan and the trucks are slowing down and blinking their lights, and I'm thinking, I guess I'd do that pass tonight. And it turned out to not be quite as bad as I had anticipated. It was a steep pass.
Well, I can actually give them a visual of that. I film it and sometimes show how we talk to the universe how we can move the trucks out of the pass. So I'm going to put a little clip there. Since we're no longer there, we can pretend to come to the Pendleton Pass. How's that?
Okay, that would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good because it is quite a pass. And
So,
when I reached the bottom of that pass, I can't think of anything that would have given me more of a sense of accomplishment. I did it. And that's when I began thinking, I saved every dime of money on this trip. I worked to save that money. I got myself moving in the direction I wanted to go. And I hadn't thought of it until we were talking about the road maps, but in a way I drew a new map for myself. And I think that's something that we all do, but maybe we don't realize what we're doing when we do it. Sometimes we do it out of desperation. And it's good, however we get it done, but I think it's important that we understand what we're doing. Life changes. Do you remember when you took me to see Tumwater Falls?
oh yeah.
And there were two beautiful young girls dressed in evening dresses and a young man in a tuxedo who was taking pictures of them.
Yeah.
And you talked to them and found out that...
Yeah, I said to her, what are you doing here, hon? What are you celebrating?
Yeah. And she told you she didn't get to go to her prom.
Yeah.
So she was doing her prom that night. And it was touching almost to the point of tears because she was beautiful. She was dressed in a gorgeous green formal that was just beautiful. And the young man was proud and taking pictures, and her friend that was with her was proud. She wrote her own road map. If I didn't get to go to my prom, usually they're in like April or May or something, she came back in September and did her prom.
A prom. Yeah. Oh.
So we have the capacity to do what we need to do for ourselves, even though our circumstances change for us. And maybe it's not our fault. Maybe it's just what happens. The world is kind of a crappy place right now. A lot of people have suffered in the past 2 years because of financial hardships and losing homes and jobs and not being able to get college loans and things. We don't. It's the easiest thing for us to do is to curl up and feel helpless. But we get to write our own roadmap if we want to. It might not be easy, but we get to do it.
Now, you know, one of the things is when people do get that education, everything, they have to borrow enormous amounts of money. And we do that thinking not a problem, we can pay it back. And then bam, you just can't.
No.
Yeah.
No. Not only can you not pay your education loans back, but maybe you can't pay the utility bill or the mortgage payment or the car payment or the rent or whatever. And it's devastating or can feel devastating when you've played by the rules and you've done the things you're supposed to do, and the map, suddenly you turn the page and it's blank.
Yeah, it just doesn't give you the obstacles there. And you prefer to travel on roads that are familiar to you, do you?
I thought so, but I've changed my mind.
Oh, okay.
I had always traveled, I had made many trips to the west coast of the United States. And I had always traveled the southern route. I go down through Oklahoma City and hit Interstate 44, is it, or 40?
40.
And travel on into California, and then eventually hit I-5, and if I'm going farther on up the coast. And I was somewhat disappointed they were having monsoons.
Monsoons and fires and winds.
Yeah,
and
California had all the had like 7 forest fires, and some of them were out of control and very close to I-5. And the southwestern part of the country, and Arizona and New Mexico, and some in California, in that part of California, were having monsoons. There was no way I could travel that. And you kept saying, travel Highway 80. That's the road to take. And I had traveled I-90 one time, and that was too much climbing. I didn't want to do that. That thing at the Continental Divide on I-90 is, I forget, the people in the town just before that had a very derogatory name for that climb, because so many people lost their transmissions in their vehicles on that climb.
Actually, you came across Continental Divide too.
Yeah,
twice.
but it wasn't a climb.
It wasn't a climb, right? It was so, yeah.
It was flat. It happened to be a flat place in Wyoming.
Yeah. I have a total blank here.
Well, let's talk about the time jump.
Yeah, okay.
That had to do with the Pendleton Pass too.
Pendleton Pass.
Because when I completed it, I thought, what were all these people talking about? Because it only took me 15 minutes. I thought. And then I found out from you that it takes about an hour.
Hour and 10 minutes. It's 52 miles long, and it takes an hour and at least 10 minutes.
And another friend I had that you don't even know, I had sent them an email and said, well, I don't know why you were warning me about this pass. It didn't take very long, about 15 minutes or so. And they wrote back and said, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but not 15 minutes. Not Pendleton Pass.
Not Pendleton Pass, yeah.
So there seemed to be, from the time I started that climb until I got to Portland, took very little gas, and I'm not sure what the distance is.
Oh, about 260 miles, maybe 250, 260.
Yeah, that normally would have used most of my gas, and I had used much less than a half a tank.
Yeah, so then you called me somewhere in the Portland vicinity?
Yeah, I had made a mistake in Portland and got lost and ended up at the airport. And had just fixed that and got back on the highway and took an exit to buy gas and called you and let you know where I was.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, I got a half an hour, I can snooze, and then you got from Portland to here in
45 minutes.
45 minutes. And for those of you that live here, you know, what can we tell you?
Yeah, I didn't know how long it had been. I wasn't watching the time. And when I called you from Olympia and told you I was here, come get me and show me how to get to your house, you said, oh, you're here already. You must have time jumped. And I didn't understand what you meant. And then you showed me on your phone.
On the phone, yeah.
Where I had called you, and that it had only been it was about 40 minutes, actually, from the time that I called you in Portland till I got here.
Yeah. So we know we can time jump forward, but sometimes when we're experiencing something, it seems like it's forever, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yes, my days sometimes had seemed, in the past few years, had seemed to be 50 hours long. Like a day would never end. I think that happens too.
Yeah, we were talking about, we were talking a little bit about how, with the present situation, you know, people being homeless and don't have any food, and
yeah. Let me go back just a little bit. For about 35 years, I've worked in social services as a social worker. For one thing, I've worked with disabled people, with very poor people, with mentally retarded and developmentally disabled people. And I was pretty good at my job. And I thought I was a compassionate person and a caring person, and I was an understanding person. But it wasn't until when I turned 60, all of a sudden I'm unemployable. I guess by some measure out there that I don't really understand, you become too old to work or something. So I wasn't able to get jobs in my field, and I took the job as essentially it was a farm laborer job. Where were we going with this? I've lost.
We were going how sometimes it takes so long when you're experiencing something.
Yeah. About paying your dues or following your own map or whatever. My map showed me that I would always be employable, and it didn't work. And it doesn't. The situation today that's what we were talking about. Things today. The economy has been so many people have lost their homes, or other things that they had bought with a loan. People have lost their jobs, and the rules have changed for them. But we still can write that new map when we want to.
I took you aside. Well, but here's the thing. This is the first time we ever physically met after.
Right.
I don't know how many years.
5 years.
Yeah, we've been talking for 5 years, but it's the first physical visit we had. Well, so we went. Well, I tried to cram 2 weeks of sightseeing in 2 days. And we did okay, didn't we?
Oh, we did fine.
Yeah. And up there, for those of you that live here, at Top Foods up there by the mall, you know, where Walgreens is and everything, there was a woman standing there one time, not too long ago, and she had she wanted money, and so one of my viewers and friends had sent money a while back for that purpose. He said, if you see anybody that needs anything, give it to him, you know. So I had a little of that left, and I gave her some money, and I said to her, how hard is it? What can I do for you? You know what she said? I'm not doing it for myself. My daughter works part-time, and I'm taking her place so we can feed her children. Can you believe it? You have to do it in shifts. That's criminal, you know.
I've learned, I know what I wanted to say. I've learned what life is like on the other side of the desk from where I used to sit when I talk to people. And I think that's something that I hope that we develop as a country, that we develop the ability, maybe not necessarily through dire experiences in our own lives, although that will teach us, but that we learn to have more compassion for the person who is looking at us from wherever we are and talking to us. We make judgments sometimes about people who are unemployed, that they're lazy. That may not be the case at all. And I don't think it generally is. It's not been my experience. Sometimes people don't know what to do.
I don't always stop on the side of the road, but I'm guided when I do. And it's always a story, you know.
In Sterling, Wyoming, one evening, I pulled in there to get a motel room. It's a small town, and this was a big truck stop with a super Walmart and so forth. And at the busiest intersection in town, there was a disheveled-looking man who was maybe in his mid-50s, standing there with holding a sign that said, "No food, no job, no money, needs help." And I thought, well, I need to get to him. But it's a very busy. Each road is 4 lanes, and it was impossible to get over to him at that time. And when I left the next morning, I left on the same busy intersection, and it was full of trucks and campers and people. I couldn't get to him then either, and he was still standing
there, yeah,
with the sign, and he's haunted me ever since. I'm so sorry that I didn't at least go to McDonald's and buy him a scrambled egg breakfast or something and take it to him, because I know that feeling of I can't imagine that feeling of desperation, I don't think, that drove him to be panhandling essentially in the middle of a hugely busy intersection.
Yeah, in that part of the country is kind of...
Panhandlers aren't around a lot. That was a risk he was taking in that environment, I think. But he looked fairly desperate.
I filmed a homeless man. Maybe I can work that in here too. We found a homeless man, and he had like a cardboard box, and he's sitting in the middle of nowhere, and he's talking to someone. Could have been an angel, you know. And so when we left, he was there, and we drove about 150 miles, and guess where he was the next time we stopped?
I have no idea.
Right there where we were, so we wasn't sure if he was a person or not, because no way could he have traveled 150 miles.
You know, that's interesting. We talk about angels and
That's right.
spirits, and we don't know where they are. Oh, I'd like to tell a little story.
Yeah, go right ahead.
It was before I left Arkansas. I was in the Walmart parking lot
Oh, yeah.
in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I had vowed I would not go back to that store, but I needed something they had, and they were cheap, so I went back. And when I came out, I was tired, didn't feel particularly good, and I unloaded my cart in the car, and I was just going to shove it over in the next parking place. But then I noticed the lights blinking on the car in front of me, so unlocking, that unlocking noise and light blinking. So I thought, well, somebody else is here, and I went to put the cart away, and I talked briefly to the woman who was behind the cart, and she kind of perked me up a little just by being a really happy person. And then a man asked me if he could take my cart, and I, of course, let him have it. And as I was walking back across, there was someone who was very tall, with very long hair and a white t-shirt and blue jeans on, walking at a diagonal across the road. And it was a young woman, and who had the oldest eyes I've ever seen. And my first impression when I looked at her was that she looked like the pictures you see of Jesus. I didn't know if it was a man or a woman at the time. But anyway, she turned around and faced me, and I could see it was a woman. She came over to me and she said, "Would you have $1? I need to buy some feminine hygiene products. And I only have $1 and it's going to cost me $2." And I said, "Sure." And I gave her the $1. And she said, "God bless you." I didn't see where she went. I didn't see her go in the store. But I did see several other people who were watching this scenario and looking at me very disapprovingly. It was obvious that they hadn't thought that I should give this woman what she needed. It was just $1 that she needed. But that could have been an angel. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talk about many things in this life. We talk about Jesus coming back, or angels coming and visit. How do we know who they are? They might not show up in white robes with wings and music playing and having halos. Maybe they just look like a very tired woman crossing the parking lot of Walmart, or the man standing with a sign in Sterling, Wyoming. To me, the lesson in this part of the journey is compassion exists without judgmentalism. We don't judge each other. We have compassion for each other.
Well, I've decided to show him the path at the end. And if I can dig up the gentleman in the middle of the field that wasn't a person at all, I will put that on there too.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, so now here's the thing. You have almost completed your physical journey, which still leaves the metaphorical journey.
Right.
From a 1 to 10, where are you?
You mean in the...
How many miles do you have left until you finished your journey?
My journey will go on for the rest of my life.
Ah, there you go, see? Well, okay, and now you're in charge of the world. What are you going to do?
Love other people. Love other people and hope that others do the same thing.
Yeah. I did a show with George Amyot, and we was trying to define love. Because sometimes when we're loving and caring, people think we're stupid.
Right.
So can you define love for me?
Caring as much about someone else as you care about yourself, I guess. I don't know. But the part about other people thinking you're stupid, so what?
But you'd be amazed how that matters to some people. They want to be liked.
Well, okay, that's true. Then you're more concerned with you getting love. But I think love is one of those things that you can't have it unless you give it away. And I think that for me, the feeling that you get when you know you've done an anonymous act of love for another human being, it fills that same hole that you're trying to get by being liked or loved by other people.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okie dokie.
Okay. When can we expect your book?
I hope in about a year, maybe. I haven't talked to you about the book.
No, that's why I put you on the spot. That's
I actually have the notes for the book in the truck, because that's a part of I hadn't thought of talking about that. That was an important part. I have instances, people, places that I was, things that I saw and heard, and I'm actually thinking about a book.
That's how mine came about. People, I didn't know I was going to write a book, and it jumped me between 2 buildings for 8 days, and next thing you know, I wrote a book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth a try.
Yeah. And what's next for you, Kathryn?
I'm not sure. I'm going to be traveling. Maybe tomorrow, and
maybe not.
Maybe not. Seem to be having a little bit of difficulty getting out of Olympia. Not in a bad sense. Just things just keep stretching. And I'm not sure how far it is, but it's the Chelan Valley area, and for a while. And then I'm not sure. But I'm sure something will present itself, and it'll be a different kind of environment. It's been very easy here with you to talk about these things and to learn more things. Then I think I told you earlier today, it's almost like being in an intense learning experience. Now I get to take that learning out into my world and live it.
Mm-hmm. I know it takes a while to absorb a journey.
I'm sure.
A trip is easy, but a journey sometimes it takes months. Looking back on it today, since you still have a little ways to go, knowing what you know now, would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Faster. Much faster.
Yeah. We're not talking about speed faster, we're talking about time faster.
Time faster.
Time faster, yeah. Mm-hmm. And
I would have been here last year or the year before.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, how am I for time here? I'm doing good for time. Now, I'm the lady that said that's not going to do any more shows.
Yeah, I know.
So here we are. Yeah.
It's probably best not to make absolute decisions.
You have to follow my own advice, and I eat my words quite often, actually.
We all do, I think.
We all do, yeah. Did we leave out anything you could think of?
I can't think of anything.
Excuse me, I'm coughing. I have no
Except just thank you for this opportunity to talk about these things. Until we started doing this, I hadn't pulled all the pieces together as much as they are now. I mean, I'm sure there's more to come. But
There is you're going to stop at Kanashibashan's, from what I understand?
Yes, I'm going to stop at Kanashibashan's and see her for a minute.
And you go into windmill country. Would you care to tell us a story about, what was it, Rockport?
Rockport.
Name of it,
Rockport, Missouri.
So we're sitting in the dark here. Yeah, we're sitting in the dark.
Well, that reminds us of electricity. When I came off the exit going to Rockport, I noticed a wind, the blades on a wind generator off to my right. And when I got to the gas station, I asked the woman inside the gas station about the windmill. And she said, oh, well, if you look a little bit farther to the left, you'll see 3 more. And she said that was the town's electric plant. And so I talked to a man who was also pumping gas while I was pumping gas, and he was a farmer in that area. And I asked him what he thought of the wind generator plant, and he said, well, at first the farmers didn't want it. because they had heard that the vibrations would disturb their crops and their the yield from their fields would be less. But the city had gone ahead and put it in anyway, and that because it was so far from the fields, it wasn't causing a problem. He thought it was really interesting. Now the town of Rockport is a very small town, but they were generating all of their own electricity. I think there were twice, he said the winter before they had to buy power from the grid. But they were also producing enough most of the time that they sold power back to the grid. And it was a city-owned power plant. I thought it was incredible. I felt really good about seeing that, because we hear so much talk about wind energy and solar energy and geothermal energy, and that was the first time I had ever seen a city, a little city, that had done it for itself. And he told me that this farmer told me that some of the other farmers in the area had installed smaller wind turbines on their farm that were supplying power for things like milking machines and electricity for the barns or for some limited use. While it didn't provide all of their electricity, it was providing part of their electricity.
Well, you're going close to the Wenatchee, Wenatchee area, and that's one of the issues up there. The farmers don't want it. So, since I have connections there, I'm going to be sure to send this video up there. And people just don't want change, that's all.
I think change is difficult. When cars were there are a lot of stories about what people did when cars were invented and they began driving them on the roads. People swore that people wouldn't accept that, but they did.
Well, I didn't want a microwave, and I didn't want a cell phone.
I didn't either.
Would you like to try to take my microwave with you?
I don't think that would be possible.
You see what I mean? Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you for sharing part of your journey with us. And then I'm going to, you're leaving tomorrow? We think, we don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm going to dig up this other footage, so I'm going to take the viewers to the past to show them how sometimes universe moves trucks, and if I can remember where the gentleman is in the middle of nowhere, then I'll show them that too. And so we hope you're closer now so you can come sometimes.
Okay. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're going to come back and we do more stuff, huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
So goodbye to your viewers.
Yeah. I say goodbye 2, 3, 4. You know I lie. You know I lie. And just because I said goodbye doesn't mean we're done, you know. So after 12 years, they kind of know. Well, eventually she'll say goodbye. But it's time to say goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Miss Kathryn.
Thank you, Miss Lillian, for having me.
Okay. To the past. Okay. To the past we go. Bye.
Says, first warning, 6 miles, 6% downwind ahead. We're on the Pendleton Pass going down 5,100 feet. It's exciting. It is? Yeah. Wait station, wait test area, 3/4 of a mile. All trucks over 20,000 pounds. Wait station. here's the next warning.
See, it just gives the trucks the speeds. Can you get that one? 18 miles. 18 miles. Okay, here we go. Slow down.
Brakes.
Yeah.
Make sure you have good brakes.
Yeah. Let's say start running. Get about that little curve there, get ready to go. Yeah. See what you take this one. Talk escape ramp.
Oh, wow. Once again, for your weights and speed.
Warning. With it. It's stuff to go right here. All right, here we go, baby.
Here we go. Going down.
One second. Yeah, see, that's how okay. This is where I'm gonna go in second gear. This is where it gets inwards.
See how high we are?
Yeah. This is see?
This is
You see it?
the one-way truck area.
See?
If the trucks can't stop, they go up the dirt hill.
Yeah, don't stop. There's no parking. If you park and one of those trucks come on the corner, here comes the innocent part. Not really gets innocent. I got the sun, I don't know where I'm going. Good thing I can have lights. Okay, slow down. Look at it, they all got bras on, so the rocks can't hit you. Second gear. Look at it.
That truck is just looking at it right there in front of you.
Huh?
That SUV truck.
Where? This one?
Yeah, he was way behind you and passed you.
Oh, yeah, they're crazy.
In front of you and
Yeah, they are nuts.
here's another one away. Truck ramp. Truckers. This is the ramp. There. That's where we're going. Way down there.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, see. That's how long it takes to stop.
going almost 50 miles an hour.
Well, yeah, we don't step on the brakes. Now, see, I gotta go back to second gear here. Because you pick up, see, now you still got a few curves, but then it's gonna start evening out. It goes down, 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 and you pick up speed. Doesn't matter what you do, see? It's not safe to drive faster than 50 because it's early in the morning. We have some running on across the highway. You know. And up again, we moved the trucks out of the pass, and how many do you see? None.
None. There we go. That wasn't that bad.
No.
We did it.
We hit just right. There's nothing, no trouble.
It's got Wild Horse Reservation. Look at all these trucks and RVs.
Yes.
We missed them. They went on the pass, which is good.
Take us here, and you take us there, and it is just because you really care.